it will say preparing live stream. This meeting is now being live streamed. So Tracy, whatever you say from this moment on will be recorded and will go down in posterity, whatever that means. I'll just see now if it's come up on my Facebook Live. Do you want to share this to anywhere or anything like that at all?
I'm no good at doing anything.
You're no good at things like that. Well, okay. Well, let me turn this on. You'll just hear my voice for a second until I just see now if it's okay. Oh, hang on, what's gone on there? All sorts of things have gone on. Well, deep darts. Wait, take a second. There we are. Do you want to share this to me? Shut up, Joseph. Shut up. Getting on my nerves. So what will happen now is the comments will appear here. So when somebody comes on and makes a rude comment, we can see it in front of us. So, Tracy, we've just had a quick conversation, didn't we? You got on to me to say it was good that somebody else was talking about the stuff that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
And we had a conversation, and it looks like not only is the stuff we're interested in now, but our lives, even from childhood, were quite similar in that we were sort of extra specially sensitive young children.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm discovering more and more now that there was lots going on. Just bear with me while comments will appear here. So it doesn't look like anybody's watching us at the moment, but never mind.
Okay.
So yeah, so what I'll do is after we've done this, I'll upload the recording onto YouTube and send the link then. And then people can do what they want with it. But I think I'm beginning to see more and more as I sort of go into this journey, just how much was going on in my childhood that I was talked out of, basically. Right. Because I used to see lots of things and feel lots of things, and people around me couldn't, and I used to try and explain these things, but people around me couldn't understand what I was talking about. And I was sort of called a bit of not a liar as such, but, you tell good stories and, that imagination of yours is going to get you into trouble. And it did as I got older and older and older, but a lot of the stuff that I was seeing and feeling, I was talked out of, and I was sort of normalized into normality, really. But I never felt that I fitted in, you know. So when we had a chat, I'm very into something called cheilontic science, and I know we talked about that. And for me, it comes the closest to how my head works, actually. And, I look at a lot of stuff on what's called the Emerald Covenant on YouTube. And when I'm reading it and listening to Ashayana Dean talk about it, it's almost like reactivating information that I already knew and was just stored up, And I'm not into religion anymore. I've at the age of 11, I was sent away, to train to be a Roman Catholic priest, because what they used to do then was at 11 they would send the eldest boy away to a seminary, a Roman Catholic seminary, which was actually about 200 miles away from my family. And from 11 till 23 years of age, they basically just used to feed information in so that you could regurgitate it, right, and build the flock, and send them into the same pen. That's the way I'm sort of looking at it now, getting into all sorts of trouble, but I can see that, with the best wishes and the best intentions of my mum and dad, they were trying to do the right thing, what they believed in, because Roman Catholicism worked great for them. They were very steadfast, very strict, and they tried to guide me in the same pathway, but it just didn't seem to fit with me. No. And so as I grew a little bit older, right, I was introduced to alcohol then, and that sort of temporarily lifted the lid off all this stuff. And it gave me, because the Romans used to say in vino veritas, means that when you've got a few ales down you, the truth comes out, And what used to come out was all the stuff that I pushed down used to make way for this other thing that came up, and it gave me total freedom. And I didn't get addicted to alcohol. I got addicted to the feeling that if I drink more of this alcohol, I'll get that lovely free feeling again, So, and that's what's happened. And So I've dispensed with religion. Spirituality to me means nothing but energy. It's just about, I call it essential bioenergetics, you know. And I think that I'm sort of guided now, if you like, from something deeper within me, which basically informs me of the actions to take one breath at a time. So that's where I'm up to. And for 30 odd years now, Tracy, I've practiced this. It hasn't been easy, but it's been worthwhile. I've never felt more complete within myself, although there's always work to do.
Yeah.
And I've never felt more clear-minded as well. But I also know that the stuff I'm interested in is really quantum science. You know, some people would call it spiritual science. And I know that people like ourselves who are tuned into this are probably a tad ahead of the scientists of the world. So I've gone on a lot because I do, you know, you'll have to jump in and say, shut up, Joe. It's my turn now. Oh, over to you. See what comes out of your gob.
Well, I mean, it's interesting that you were brought up in the Roman Catholic religion, because I was brought up in the Roman Catholic religion. So my mum's Irish, and it was just, for me, going to church was a chance to sing, because I liked singing. So I actually didn't mind going to mass. I didn't really mind being in that environment. A lot of my friends, excuse me, a lot of my friends were there. So I'd see them sort of, and then when we'd been to mass, sometimes there'd be a youth group afterwards, and we'd all get together and we'd all, you know, and even though it was religion that brought us together, I didn't feel as though I was being pushed in any way, shape or form. So I think my interpretation of the Catholic religion, obviously compared to yours and to a lot of other people's, will be different in the fact that I didn't feel as though it, to some degree, I suppose some people would have thought that we were brought up in a strict way, but I don't think we really were. My mum wasn't really that strict on the four of us. I'd say that my father was actually stricter in some respects, and he wasn't in the Catholic religion, even though he did get married and he did go to church at Christmas and stuff like that, but he didn't really practice the way that my mum practiced. And I think it didn't have that bigger impact on me because of the fact that I didn't mind going. But later on, when I got older and, you know, I was, you know, doing my own thing and wanting to do my own thing, again, it wasn't like it was forced upon me to do that. So that side of the religion, I understand that a lot of people have been taken down one route, and I wasn't pushed to go, but I did always know, innately feel that the man that was standing up in front of me was in no way, shape or form really, you know, sort of somebody that I should listen to wholeheartedly, or even, you know, I saw going to mass and going to church as a time to see my friends in the pews and sort of look around and everything, and to sing when the hymns were on. I'd find mass really boring if there wasn't any singing. So religion in that respect for me wasn't too bad, but I did know come a certain point that it wasn't going to be something that I was going to, you know, follow for the rest of my life. And because I had studied the Bible, I had to do it in school, because I went to Roman Catholic primary schools and secondary school, and then I went to church every Sunday, and I did the youth groups, and I did various things like that. I took from it what I needed to in a social way.
Yeah.
And I didn't let the rest really, you know, although I've got to admit, when we used to have to study the Bible, more the Old Testament than the New Testament, it used to scare me as a child. The Old Testament scared me as a child. And yes, you're told you're a sinner and everything else. But I don't think, even as a young child, I wholeheartedly, I didn't agree with it, and I didn't really take that on board. Like I said, I think I just took from it what I wanted and what, you know, what was resonating with me at the time. And then as I grew older, it wasn't something again that I carried on going down that road. I'd sort of left it to the wayside when my children came along. I sort of felt as though I should adhere to some of the rules and regulations by getting married in a church, and, you know, and both of mine were baptized, but then I had come to a point where I was pretty much done with the whole church thing come my daughter's second christening, or my daughter's christening, sorry. So my second child, she was my second child. When she was christened, it was not long after that I thought, you know, I'm not taking my two down this road, because it's not something that I felt that was resonating at all by that point, you know. And a part of me, I don't know, I mean, my husband and I have spoken about the fact that we feel as though, even though we got married in the church and everything, we would like, if we'd have had our time again, we wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, I understand completely. I see, by the age of 7, I was terrified of going to hell.
Right.
I used to have recurring nightmares for about a month. It was every single night when I would go to sleep, I would imagine that I was tumbling down the stairs. You know, we lived up in a little 2 up, 2 down, you know, in quite an impoverished area, and very, very tight Irish Roman Catholic background. So there was that whole cultural pressure as well. Mm-hmm. My mum was the boss of the Mothers Union, you know, the Catholic Mothers Union.
Yeah.
And I was the chief altar boy, you know, and I was the holiest of holiest, you know, and that's what I can see, that I was always trying to impress people by being a good boy, you know, by doing the best, by running around and doing people's messages for my old auntie and all these. So I was trying to follow what I was being shown, but I just never felt right, you know. I was always terrified of going to hell if I did anything wrong at all, you know, and that was from a very, very early age. So yeah, our upbringings were different. And we used to have, when my brother and I used to sort of grow up, we started to play golf. And we used to skip out on Sunday mass, you know. But when we got home, we were quizzed on what colour vestments did the priest have on, and, you know, all that sort of stuff. So we sort of had to time our playing golf with running into a church, looking at the vestments that a priest had on at that time, and then going. But, you know, it was lunatic. So every single thing that I did, this is true, every single thing that I did was wrong, and I was going to hell, you know.
Yeah.
And then when, you know, I think we touched upon this, when other feelings came up, you know, our attitudes towards sex and all these sorts of things, I was terrified, because even at 7 and 8 years of age, I knew this sex thing was a sin. And if you had anything to do with it whatsoever, right, you were going to hell. So then when all these natural feelings started to emerge in teenage years, right, I sort of, as the feelings were trying to come up, I sort of closed my throat down, pushed it all back down again, right? And it sort of misdirected all these natural urges, which I thought was evil, you know, into different parts of my body, you know. So I ended up like with a hump, a hump on my shoulder, you know, and all sorts of tightness in my throat. And, you know, I was terrified all the time, you know, and this is even 13, 14, 15, 16 years of age. I didn't have any idea what was going on. However, when I found drink, it temporarily allowed all this stuff to come out and gave me freedom, you know. And the stuff that I did in drink, you know, a lot of the stuff I did in blackout, you know, and I've tried to explain this to people, that I did a lot of stuff in blackout that I'm not proud of, but I've forgiven myself for all this stuff, you know, because it was so powerful, and the release was, and the instincts and the repression, you know, it gave me freedom. But when I used to wake up the next morning, I was horrified. I was shame-ridden, guilt-ridden, and thought that I was possessed by the devil and stuff like this, you know. So I realize now in blackout, and I can't recall all this stuff, you know, and if anything did come back, you know, and I was presented with it, do you remember doing this? Well, the answer will be, no, I don't really, but I'll accept that. If that really did happen, then yeah, okay, that's fine. But where I'm going with this is, in the different dimensions, it's made me understand that are sort of compartments of the mind, or even different timelines or different realities, that drink and drugs and all these and other practices can take you into different aspects of your mind. And from there, then you can behave in different ways, you know. And that led me on down this route of, if you like, spiritual science and the understanding of various philosophies across the globe, you know. And so I can see where the Buddhists are coming from, or some Buddhist sects, you know. They believe that everything's happening now and that there's various dimensions, you know, happening all at the same time. And it is possible with practice that you can actually change direction and go to different dimensions consciously, you know. So that's where I'm up to now. I've sort of digressed a bit, but what I've learned is that I need to live a life now. And when I say clean, I don't mean morally good or bad. I'm not into all that, you know. But what I try and do every day now is I sink into my heart, because I do feel that there's an innate intelligence in there.
Yeah.
I sink into my heart. I relax as best as possible. I sort of tap on my heart to make the connection. And I'm more or less saying, hello, what are we up to today? Give us a clue. And that's how I've lived my life now for over 30 odd years. And it works, Tracy. You know, I've come through some hard stuff, but I've never needed to take a drink again. I've never needed to take a drug or anything like that. I try and live as cleanly as possible, you know, because I do feel that the world that we see out there, it's never been more toxic, you know. And I believe in something called, you know, tough love, because I've been shown through the 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous, I was shown a really straightforward and direct cut-through approach where I was given instructions on how to look out for ego, or the shadow ego, how to determine and find out what it feels like when the shadow ego is trying to have a go at you, and the mechanisms by which you can emotionally disengage from that. And that's how I live my life now, you know. So I don't know whether that makes any sense, but over to you again.
Yeah, I mean, obviously living moment to moment is sort of the thing that everyone talks about, living in the now and living in the moment, you know, and that is the thing. When you can get there, when you can really be present in every now moment, it totally changes everything, absolutely everything. And it is a journey. It is a journey into well, it's a lot of things, I suppose, in a way. It's stripping the layers back to find out who you are, self-discovery of everything that had been programmed around me from birth until, you know, wherever you are in this, you know, now moment or in this time. Some people aren't there. Some people are still living in that programmed matrix, in that, and it's not for anyone to try and pull them out, because it's just like everything. They say that if you were to help a butterfly out of its chrysalis, that butterfly will not fly, that butterfly will die.
Yeah.
So you sort of have to understand that everybody's in a different stage. And the people that are talking to each other now are the people who are at a certain point, or have realized that they have been, you know, sort of not led down the path, but sort of they have been living an alternate reality. They've been living a life that the matrix has decided to program out there, and that's not living within. That's living without. That's everything that's outside of you. You are living for that, whereas you're not living for yourself. If you don't go within, if you don't try and find the answers within, if you don't become the voice in your head, and not the voices that are out there, if you don't become the voice that you want in your head, you are living the matrix's, like, you know, way. And then I think the reason why a lot of people are talking now is because they have come to the realization, they have the awareness, they have the consciousness, and they've come to a point where they go, right, no, this really hasn't been working for me. Something is not right, it's amiss. And it can be lots of different things. It can be a near-death experience, or it can be just your health. You know, it can be a mental thing that's come up, and then it's made you, there's lots of different reasons why people have sort of, as everyone puts it, awoken, but that's the only way to describe it, because it is sort of going from being that butterfly in the chrysalis to then coming out, and then you become the butterfly. Then you have to start learning how to live again, or learning how to live from your own truth rather from the act. So it's literally coming from the inside out, but having to shut everything from the outside and go within.
Yeah. Oh no, I totally agree. And in my own life, you know, and I only try and talk about my own experience, you know, and what I've gone through, and I try and be as honest as possible, you know, and as clear as possible, really. And I got to the stage where I made a good few attempts, serious attempts, to kill myself, because I just couldn't handle what was going on in my head. You know, I felt so emotionally sort of, what's the word? Sometimes I'd be totally emotional. Yeah, absolutely. I was bored and burnt out at the same time, and life didn't mean anything to me. Even, and people used to say to me, you know, you've got a PhD, or you're doing a PhD, because I've had a couple of goes at doing a PhD, you know, and they say, but you're so clever, you've got all these qualifications. By the way, I never thought that. I don't think that now. People say to me, you've got all these qualifications. I don't feel like that. I think, don't ask me a hard question. I probably won't know the answer, you know. But, you know, the point I got to was, no matter what I tried, I just couldn't find any sort of peace within myself, you know. The Irish have a phrase, how are you in yourself? You know, and if I was going to be honest about it, right, I was confused. I didn't have a clue. I was pretending. I had this head bobbling above the surface with all these answers in. And so I'd regurgitate what they wanted to hear, but deeper down, sinking into my heart. And I was in a condition called denial for years and years and years, because I didn't have the courage or the strength to turn my eyes in and face what was really going on, you know. And I'm glad that I've gone through the process, but when I was going through it, it was shit, you know. It was really horrendous. And everybody around me who loved me was saying to me, Joe, this was in work as well, you know, because I was good. I was running a hematology department in a hospital, you know, and I was looking after so many staff, and I was doing all these managerial things. I was trying to do a PhD as well, you know, and the people around me would say to me, Joe, if you carry on at this pace, you're going to have a nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
And this is what denial was. My head, see this thinking head, it said, it used to say to me, what are they talking about? We're going on 3 holidays a year. We've got 2 cars. We've got a big 5-bedroomed house. We've got all that you could possibly want. What's the matter with you? And I can see now, material versus spiritual, or what I call the vital life, you know, because I don't get into like the words. Sometimes the words can obstruct, you know. People, when I say spiritual, they think religion, they think, oh, he's some sort of religious nutter. Those people who know me know that that's absolutely not true. In fact, they call me Dr. Effin Joe, you know, because be rather flowery with my language sometimes. But what I'm trying to say is I was in denial, you know. And how do you know in denial? Because you feel shit. You don't have to think about it. Sit down here and say, how do you feel? Are you comfortable in your own skin, right? And do you feel that you've got some sort of purpose in life? Well, you know, had they asked me that at 15 years of age, I would have said, I've got no idea what's going on, you know. So I agree with you. And this, I mean, you can say, can't you, oh, it's just that I'm living in the now. Everything's fine, you know, and bollocks, you know, another favorite word of mine, bollocks, you know, because you just have to look into people's eyes, don't you? You can see where they are really. And where I'm up to now is I can see, for me, that this whole journey of the human being is about one thing and one thing alone, self-mastery. It's about knowing yourself. It says, doesn't it, above the portals, you know, of know thyself, you know, at Delphi. It just says, know thyself. And I think the way that the world's set up now is it keeps you looking outwards, you know, so that you can't look inwards, you know. And there's somebody called Maslow, a famous psychologist who was into behavioral science and stuff, you know, and he has this Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know, and it's basically as you fill one stage in, you jump up to the next one, you know, and if you do it naturally and normally and properly, you sort of just ascend this up this sort of hierarchy. And right at the end, just before you snuff it, you're said to be self-actualized, you know, so you come out at the top, you gain your wings. Right. And if you want to do it again and learn another thing, you know, you pick a different story, you know. But Maslow's hierarchy of needs is well known in psychology. But what actually happens is there's 7 stages. There used to be 5, but there's 7 stages. And most people are stuck at 3.4. And I just explain that for people now is that they've got to a stage where in society, they've got a place in society. You know, they might have a family, they might have some children, they might feel secure in themselves, but this niggling thing to say there's got to be more than this. Yeah. And what tends to happen is you can either revolve and keep going round in that same old 3D circle, or you can turn your back on every single thing that you've ever been taught, or that's been socially conditioned into you. And you can say, I feel that there's something deeper in me that's trying to express itself here. Now, Tracy, you know, to get to that point and to be able to turn your back on society as such and to say, no, there's something more individual in me that's trying to come out. It takes courage to say to the herd, no, thanks very much, right? But I'm going to do my own thing. And I see the best film I ever saw was called Happy Feet, you know, because he was like a bit weird, Happy Feet. And he kept coming up with these ideas. And society said, oh, you don't want to be thinking like that. If you go on your own now, we're going to turn our backs on you. You're not one of us anymore. He had to go, well, up you, right? I've got to go with this thing, you know. And I feel that unless people actually get the courage, right, to get to that point, there's an expression that says, why don't you need to put a lid on a bucket of crabs? Have you got any idea? It's because as any crab tries to escape, they all gang together to pull them back down again, you know, and that's tending what's happening as I see it, you know, in society at large, is that people have got different ideas and they can see things a bit more clearly. But as they express them, they either get ostracized, right, or they get dragged back in through guilt and toxic shame and stuff like that, you know. So you have to grow a pair, really, or if you're a lady, you have to, well, basically grow a pair, I suppose. But, you know, I don't know where we're going with this conversation, but I can see now that, you know, we've been duped, we've been conned, and it's up to the individual without any external pressure to sort of sit with them, redevelop their critical thinking skills, look at both sides of the equation, and then go through mindful meditation, this objective point where they can almost like look on the story of their whole life in an objective and detached way and say, yeah, that works for me, but that doesn't, so that'll have to go. So it's almost like doing an inventory of what they call what serves you and what doesn't. And if it's no longer serving you, it needs to be discarded completely, you know. And I think that's where I am now. That's where a lot of people are. I'm much more honest with what works in my life, you know, and what doesn't. I've got no idea what I've just said there, Tracy, but it's over to you now.
Well, more than anything, I think that we are obviously in an era or an age of truth. Truth is a big one, because you can't move on. I feel for a lot of people that they would feel they can't move on until they know the truth, whether it be the truth from the outside world, society, or whatever. We're saying not to look out there. And sometimes it's best not to look out there to look for the truth just yet, because you need to find your own truth first. Yeah. When you've gone within and you find your true path, your truth as in, why am I doing this job? Does this resonate? Do I really, you know, is this something that's making me, you know, get up in the morning and go, yes, I want to go? Or is this like, oh God, I've got to get up, I'm going to go to, you know, there's your truth right there, your feelings. You just tap into your feelings, tap into your emotions. You find out where your truth lies. is this person, good for me? Are they, positive, or are they, in some way, shape or form, do they resonate? They don't always have to be optimistic and positive and everything else. I mean, at the end of the day, not everyone can be 24/7. That is the way that this is designed at the moment, or it seems to be at the moment. Hope a lot of us are sort of looking to this not being the way it's always going to be, that if more of us can wake up to their own truth, find their own joy and find their own happiness, that we will then go beyond the having to look to other people for our, codependency on, I love you, you make me happy, I need you. You understand what I'm saying? It's having to clear everything truthfully. How does that person make you feel? Why are they in your life? What are they doing for you? But not in a sense of, well, what can I get out of this? No, it's more the fact that are they supportive? Are they, on the same page, regardless of whether or not they happen to be your mum, your dad, your husband, your brother, your sister, your kids, or whatever else. I mean, having children can take it to a different level, because children are dependent on you because of the fact that they are they're codependent on you because they're children, and in that way. But also you need to be aware that they're dependent on you, but are you helping them in their journey, regardless of what age they are? Because everyone is here to help everyone. Humanity, the humans are heart-led social beings that want to help and want to do that, but you can't help someone if your cup is only half full. So if everybody, or if people would take a look within first and just start sort of getting rid of the noise and the fluff and the bits that don't matter, get to the heart of the matter, go to the heart of the matter with things. And if you start stripping away all of the stuff that you sometimes purposely put there because you think, oh, I need that and I need that and I need that. No, you need to be objective, and you also need to be self actualization is a big thing, and be aware of why those things are in your life and why those people are in your life and everything in your life. And you need to be not necessarily brutal, but you need to come to a point of understanding that until I strip everything away and I get to the core of who I am, I'm never going to be able to be of service to the rest of the community, which is what I've done on my path. I literally got to a point where I knew that I was not, the words that were coming out of my mouth were programmed by my parents or programmed by society. And I was doing that to my children. I was reiterating those words, and I was going down the same path. And I'd already said, I don't want to be like so-and-so, or I don't want to, I already said, I didn't agree with what they did to me or how they did. So I'm not going to be that way. And then I came to a point where I went, I'm doing exactly what I said I wouldn't do. I'm doing it. So then I went, no, enough is enough. It stops here with me, because that perpetuation of that it has to stop. And I took a really strong stance with myself, and I went, no, I'm not. It stops now. It stops here, and it stops with me. It's not going any further. So then I thought, well, why do I think that my son is deliberately doing that to upset me? And why do I think that that person is doing it? Why do I feel? And then I went, no, actually, it all boils down to me, my perception, my awareness. It's me. Then when I turned within and I started doing the work within, I now come to a point where I think, not that I'm here to basically serve or help humanity, but if anyone comes on my path or happens to be, when I'm on my journey, and I happen to be at a point where I can help them in any way, shape or form, not that I'm qualified to give advice. I don't have any papers or anything else. But what we should understand is that back when there wasn't all of this technology and fluff and everything, the one thing that a lot of people did do was go around to other people's houses and talk about their problems. A problem shared is a problem halved, and everything else. Now we've become so immersed in technology and everything else that's going on. We literally, everything has just been crammed on us. And because we've decided that, yes, this must be the right way, I'll take it all on, give it all. I was like, no, don't give anything else to me. I don't want anything else. This is where I put a bubble around myself. I start going within. And when I go within, I then start stripping away the layers that I know I don't need that. I don't need that. I don't need that. I don't need that. Then I found myself. I truly found myself. And I went, there you are. That's where you've been all this time. It's nice to meet you finally. Then I started to get to know myself again. And as I've become more aware of who I am, of the qualities that I have, everyone has different qualities, different gifts. Everyone can, bring things to the table. That's why I like meeting. I've always been a very social person anyway. I like meeting new people. I like traveling. I like doing all of this. And then you become aware that this is a collective thing. When you can understand that everybody has a piece of the puzzle, and everybody that comes into your life is there for a reason, whether or not you think it be negative or positive or whatever. You, on a soul level, in some way, in some degree, on a soul level, you've agreed for that person to play that role and to do that, so that it would help you on your journey. It would help you get to where you are. So when you're able to then understand, this person's here because they're showing me that I have a distrust for, this or this, then you don't see them as being a negative thing. You see them as being, okay, you're shining a light on that aspect because I still have something that I need to work through. And when you can come from a place of I don't like to say understanding because it's under. I heard people say that words have been used like spellings and stuff like that. So when I have an inner standing of why that person's there, I don't see them as being negative or positive. I see them as being an experience that I needed at that time.
I see it exactly the same way. I like the way you said shines a light on some sort of impediment, really, to the fuller flow of this vitality. That's how I see it now, is that any trigger or any emotional disturbance that I get, it's like a hook going, ooh, hang on, stop. Now, whereas I used to be emotionally reactive, then jump up into fight and flight and try and defend myself, I know now in that I've been trained in it, and I can, most of the time, I can go, ooh, hang on, take a step back, create some space, breathe away the emotional engagement with the problem. And then that leaves me in a sort of settled, neutral place where I'm sort of watching the fight from the audience, if you like. So I'm watching the disturbance in my own life, in Joe's life, right, from a sort of bystander point of view, and seeing it objectively as though it's happening to somebody else, right? And then I can say, oh, yes, I've said yes there when I really meant to say no. I need to jump back into the ring and say, I've just said yes there. Well, I've thought about it again and I'm awfully sorry, but I won't be able to do that. Now, whatever happens from that person's point of view then is nothing to do with me, because I've just cleared the pathway, got me sweeping brush and gone, and so the flow's back. I'm back to in that optimal flow zone, if you like, call it the going with the flow, call it what you like. But I think that that's the optimal point of perfect balance then, when it's a sort of still moving thing. But it's a bit like surfing, really, so we don't push the wave. We sit on the wave so that we go in the direction of the wave rather than us being in the front trying to redirect this natural force, And from the science stuff that we talked about or just glimpsed before, I used to say in chemistry, when I was doing chemistry and stuff, I used to say, but we've got protons, neutrons and electrons. What are they made out of? Right, don't be asking hard questions, just learn this. regurgitate it and you'll get the qualification. I used to think, but it doesn't make sense to me. And then they'd say, well, it's about really wave particle duality. And I'm thinking, oh, this sounds better. This sounds good, And I used to have all these pictures coming into my mind, about the angles at which, and forces and flows and stuff like this, And that's why I love this cheilontic science, because it goes into that and it says, well, they're made of those. And then we've got all these other things like leptons, xenons, quartons, and they're made of this. So there was different dimensions of subtle influences going on, all the way back, if you like, to the Big Bang or source or whatever it was like, And then I got involved with understanding about how light can be directed then for various purposes, and it's very sort of contemporaneous now with all the stuff that's going on. But, my big thing, Tracy, that I've come to is freedom is the ability to be allowed to choose yourself and accept the consequences of your choices. And I honestly feel, right, that people can do what they feel as long as they accept the responsibility of the choice that they make then.
Right.
So my view is, because I teach medical people how to critically think, how to critically evaluate and analyze and synthesize information. That's what I do for a living. A lot of people don't know this, but critical thinking seems to have jumped out the back door at the moment, because to me, critical thinking is to have an objective standpoint as far as you possibly can, and to examine evidence from both sides, right? Without being coerced by vested interests. It's to sit with it, to take the information, to allow it to sit and to be worked out from a deep within, right? And then to make a choice based on that then, right? But if somebody says, hang on, you're making the wrong choice. No, from your point of view, I'm making the wrong choice. But the way I feel about it is, no, this is what I'm going to choose, and I will accept the consequences of my choice. But you're going against the collective consciousness. I couldn't give a shit, right? Well, if you don't do this, you will harm thousands of people. Oh, well, we're all responsible for the choices we make. I'm just looking after my own health, my own well-being. Oh, you're selfish. No, I'm not, right? No, I'm not. I'm self-caring. And people, especially in the departments that I work in, you get that tut, 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 as if you're some sort of a bad person, Tracy, I'm not a bad person, honestly. All my life, all I've ever wanted to do was to be helpful to people. And that hasn't changed at all. But the direction that I'm coming at it now has changed completely. It has. And I'm like, I've gone from being a sort of miserable, terrified, what will people think of me? Even though I'm 6 foot tall, and I'm carrying a few extra pounds, on the inside, right, I was terrified to voice my true opinion. So I'd make up a lie and then I'd tell a big story. And when their faces changed, to be more pleased to think, oh, I've got away with that. I can't do that anymore, Tracy. I can't. And I haven't done it for a long time. And you know what? If I'm wrong, I'll say, you were right and I was wrong. Just like those people around me who cared for me and loved me, right? And they said to me, Joe, if you carry on like this, you're going to have a nervous breakdown. And my head said to me, no, they don't know what they're talking about. And when I had the nervous breakdown, Tracy, and tried to kill myself, I said to them, you were right and I was wrong, right? And something else I've learned as well, Tracy, is I can say, if somebody asks me a question now, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that. And I couldn't do it before. I would make up a big story, and I've told some whoppers, honest to God, right? And convinced a lot of people, selling sand to the Arabs, if I'm allowed to say Arabs these days. I don't know whether that's, I think. So, I can see now that I'm happy with how I've become rigorously honest. But there still may be bits in me that I'm completely dishonest about, but I don't know about it. And I'm not bothered if something comes to the surface and say, look, hang on a second. I'll say, oh, right, okay. I never saw that, and take appropriate action. Over to you, my love.
Well, it's a work in progress. Obviously, the human experience is a work in progress. I mean, things have changed. Things have changed a lot. I mean, even when I look on my lifetime and I think I was born before the techno era, and my children were born in the technological, era. And I look back on those days of riding a bike, kicking a ball, and and going to the park as being, great. And I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. But how things have changed so much in what seems to be such a short space of time. How anyone can even comprehend some things now. I even wonder how people manage to even get up in the morning sometimes and keep going with everything that is being thrown at them left, right, and center. I don't have a TV. It's not a choice that I've gone, I ban that. And it's funny how us not having a TV came about. We moved to Dubai, and my two were like primary school age. We moved to Dubai. My husband's job took us to Dubai, and we packed everything up. We left Surrey. Literally our suitcases flew over there. My husband's job meant that we had an apartment already there. It already had furniture and everything else. So we basically just needed our clothes. But then when we got there, we realized there was a few knickknacks, but all our stuff was on the, slow boat from China. So we had to wait a good couple of months before things had come over, and the TV happened to be packed up in amongst the stuff. I mean, we didn't really know. I mean, I'd done some research on Dubai. I'd checked a few things out, because there were a few things that, certain people in my life were worried about. The fact that women are treated differently. Would I be able to drive? Can I have a job? All these things. So I looked into all of that. But it's funny, because when a lot of our stuff came over, and it wasn't a major amount, we realized how we'd been without it for 3 or 4 months, and that most of it we really didn't need anyway. It was nice for the kids to go, oh, there's my teddies, or oh, there's this, there's that. So the TV was plugged in, and obviously totally different signal, totally different. So of course Arabic TV was up on the TV, and we didn't understand a word, so the TV stayed off most of the time. We didn't even bother with it. We had an outdoorsy life. 4 years, move on 4 years, move back to the UK, and the TV gets put in the room, and my two don't even bother with it. We haven't watched it for 4 years. So me and my husband said, well, it's been sat there for a couple of months. Is there any point? And we were like, well, no, not really, because even though it's there, and they've now got a chance of watching what they've grown up without TV for 4 years, in quite a pivotal point in their life, because my daughter was only 4 and my son was 8. So they didn't have it for 4 years. And when we came back, it's not like they missed it or anything. They didn't go back to sitting there watching the TV all the time. So we just got rid of it. But that's an outside distraction. For me, TV, I'm glad that we don't have it, because I don't think I would be living the life I have now if I had a TV in front of me every night. I know I wouldn't. I would be in a point of being, programmed, because that's what TV does to you. It programs you. So all these outside things, you just start stripping them away, and then you realize how much of your time they have taken. And, you could be, I don't know, catching up with what your daughter did in school, and having a chat with her, and and interacting with her, even though she has her own devices and stuff like that. She loves coming out with me. We go roller skating, we go bowling, we go and do stuff together, because I don't want to lose that human side of that social side of humanity. I don't want that to go, even though every time I look around me, all I see is this. Like, but the ones that are on that path, it's not for them to tap on the shoulder and try and wake them up, but hopefully as it goes on and more of us go, it's there for a reason. Technology is there for a reason, and everything in moderation.
Which is middle point, isn't it? It's the middle way to me. I agree entirely. I mean, there's so much we can discuss. I mean, the balance within the individual of the feminine and the masculine components. How do you get to that? Well, you have to get out of the way and allow it to naturally reset itself. They're all talking about the Great Reset, and there's two. There's a sort of material view to that one, and there's also a spiritual angle as well. And I think that if you surrender completely to the next stage of your being, and you allow it to do the work, it's not something outside of you, it's something inside of you, which is the next stage of you. That's the way I look at it. You're not giving your power away to anything. You're actually getting out of the way to be de-obstructed so that this flow, this evolutionary impulse, can actually take you up to the next stage. I mean, and whether or not we are moving and we're ascending and descending, we're going left to right and this, that, and the other, I'm not bothered about that at all. It's just that, what do I do when I'm stuck? Right, what do I do? And what I do now is I go into my heart, I do a certain mindful breathing technique, and it's basically quite simple. I breathe in a smile and I breathe out a smile, and it sort of settles me down, and then my head pops open again and I can make clearer decisions. It's really become that simple to me. How do I know I'm out of the flow? Because I feel shit. I feel blocked, I feel obstructed, I've got a grip in my gut, or my head's gone west or something like that. Yeah. And so I've got this thing in me now that's there most of the time that says stop, breathe, let your shoulders relax, take a step back, look at the situation again, have a look at it. What choice did you make there that's caused the obstruction? Go back and reconnect it. Okay. And that's how I live my life now, and I avoid any toxic substances like the plague, and what other people do and what other medical procedures they go through, that's entirely their choice.
Absolutely.
And if they say to me, what would you do if you were me? I'd say, well, I'm not you, but I'll tell you what I've done.
Yeah.
I've done this. What do you think we should do with that? I've got no idea. All I'm saying is I've looked at it, I've weighed up the so-called pros and cons, but I could be wrong. But I've decided, at least for the moment, the weight of evidence falls to this side, and I'm going to make my choice based upon what I consider to be the weight of evidence. And if it changes tomorrow, I'll let you know that I've changed my mind, And it's amazing, really, because I feel comfortable with myself, and there's always a spark of, I'm not quite sure. And I think that that's a positive thing, because in the past, I was completely and utterly sure about what everybody else should do. Right. Honest to God. Right. I was completely, there is no question about it. No question about it. Right. And I was always wrong. I was called, what did he call it? Know all, knows, oh, don't say that, Joe. A knowledgeable idiot. Right. Okay. I was a knowledgeable idiot. And I did have a lot of knowledge, and I did have and do have a lot of qualifications. But when it came to feeling good, none of those things, Tracy, none of them worked for me whatsoever. So I've had to dispense with it now. Excuse me one sec. I've dispensed with that now, and what I tend to do is I just sort of go with what emerges from my heart. It's almost like given to me on a plate, but it comes up from within me. I don't question it anymore, other than I get a feeling of the correct action to take. Yeah. And here's the thing is, if I take an action and it feels uncomfortable, I can go back and go, hang on, did I get that right? No, turn right. You were going to go left there, but turn right. And I turn right, and then the flow continues then, And it's hard to explain it to somebody, but I think you have to get to a point where you sort of have to act in blind faith for a while and trust that the process somebody else has gone through, because you've seen them improve. Just give it a fair trial yourself. And if it works for you, then all well and good. And if it doesn't, then all well and good,
Exactly. And I think the best thing is that, you don't go looking outside of yourself for the guru who's going to have the next, I don't know, amazing sort of transformation that is going to happen. And what you do is you go, okay, well, I might dabble in this a bit, or I'll have a look over there and see what it, and like you say, from the standpoint where you can be objective, where you can go, I don't really like the idea of that, but let's have a look, pros and cons of giving this a go, or if you really need to do that. I mean, I remember when I was younger, I can't remember who told me, well, if you really want to do it, but you're not sure. Write down a list of pros and write down a list of cons, and then you've got it on a piece of paper there. It's sort of like, I suppose in a way they used to try and get you to sort of put something that's sort of like, visual or cemented in some way, that you've written yourself, that you've gone, right, this is good and this is bad. Right, now I can work from here, instead of having everything going around in your head constantly all the time, and you just getting nowhere, because 1 minute this is telling you one thing, the next minute is. I think sometimes when you then decide that you're going to take the ball by the horns, you're going to do it yourself. You're going to start, understanding that you are the answer. You're the one you've been waiting for. We're the ones we've been waiting for. There's nobody outside of you that is going to be able to tell you what's good for you. It's only you can do that when you go within. And then when you go within, you go, right, okay, I am taking the reins here. I am in control. Nobody else. I'm in control. I'll listen to what you've got to say, and I'll listen to what you've got to say. If it's worked for you, great. I'm cheering you on. You keep going. I'm really happy it's working for you. And I've listened to you. Actually, I'm going to give that a go, first of all. Not saying that, but for now, I think for me in this time, at this moment, I'm going to try that. So then I try it and I go, oh, okay, yeah, that's worked to some degree. But because of everything always evolving and expanding anyway, there's always going to be more and more and more. So what you need to do is, when you've got rid of the fluff and peeled the onion back and found out who you are, you can then start going on your journey, no one else's.
You don't have to go on when you get going, don't you? Listen, you're hiding something from us as well, because from a professional point of view, you had a very interesting occupation, didn't you, really?
Yeah, well, I suppose it's interesting in the fact that, I don't know, I mean...
Go on, tell us what it was, Tracy, and stop being, like, humble about it.
What, a singer?
Yeah. Professional singer, weren't you?
Yeah,
still a professional singer?
Well, it's quite funny because my mum would always say that it was a gift from God, and of course, when back then God was the religious God. Now God is source, creator, whatever. Yeah. And let's be honest. Let's put this and bring this down to like here and now. It's a talent. It's a gift that was bestowed on me. Whether or not I've done it in past lifetimes, or whether or not it's just come to me now, but I've got a feeling from what I've done some tapping into, this is definitely something that has come down from past lifetimes. And it's just something that was just there. And I have not been trained. I have not, it was just, and it was discovered by accident, purely by accident. Long story, well, not long story, but the short version, I was in what was classed as year 7 now, which was year 1 back in secondary school. We had to do hymn practice every Monday lunchtime. We were allowed to go in first, because I think because we were the youngest year, we went in lunch first anyway. So you went to lunch, you had to go straight from lunch into the hall. You weren't allowed to go into the playground or go anywhere else. And we had to do hymn practice for half an hour of the lunch break every Monday. So I was sat towards the back of the room and I was talking to my friends, because we'd been in that year for about 2 or 3 months. And what happened was I'd gone to one primary school, and then the last year of that primary school we moved. So then I ended up going to another primary school, but they fed into the same secondary school. There were 3 primary schools that fed into the one secondary school. So of course, over those months, I had a lot of catching up to do, and sometimes the best place to do it was in hymn practice. So I enjoyed singing, but at this point I hadn't really tapped into, I knew I could sing, but I hadn't really tapped into much. So of course, I had my friends next to me and I was talking, all of a sudden I just felt this. I was like, oh, Sister Mary had me by the ear and she dragged me to the front of hymn practice. And then I was like, I had no idea what was going on. I just knew I was in trouble. And because I knew 2/3 of the room, because I'd been to 2 out of the 3 primary schools, everyone was looking at me going, I was like, oh no. And then she said, everyone finished singing that hymn, she said, right, Tracy will now do the first verse and chorus on her own, in front of you all. And I was like, right. So then I had the hymn book in front of me, and I knew a lot of the hymns because I'd been going to church since I was knee high to a grasshopper anyway. So I'm there and I'm singing, and then after I'd done that, she went to the rest of and I sung the whole hymn on my own. She then called me back. She said, sit down, I want to speak to you after. I said, oh no, I'm in trouble. Well, it turned out to be my penance for the whole time I was in school, because every mass, every single, I was there and I was singing. So it sort of came about in a roundabout way of me being, punished, but it became, in a way, it sort of did become a punishment for the whole 5-6 years I was then at secondary school, because every single opportunity for me to sing, I was in front of the whole school, I was here. But then I suppose in a way it gave me the platform, and I just realized that I had a natural talent for it, and it just carried on from there. So yeah, school, college, university, and then Talent Scout saw me at a show and said, we need a singer for a cruise ship. Have you got your passport? And I was like, no, it's not. And I didn't get it ready in time. So that sort of fell to the wayside. I then ended up going home after I finished university, which is in Salford in Manchester. And then I auditioned for P&O, and I got the job. And the rest is history. I've then just traveled the world doing something that I enjoy. So again, it's been sort of divinely guided, I would say.
I think it's marvelous, and I think, I'm looking at a field, or developing a field called chromatooptogenetics, and what that is really is the chromatic scale, the 12 notes, on the piano.
Yeah.
But chromatic also means to do with light as well. So this is the use of sound to direct light at various frequencies to actually start to heal the body as well. Because I just think that any illness or any disease is actually just an obstruction to the free flow. And all alternative and complementary therapies know this, that disease and disorder is an obstruction or a blockage to the free flow of this. If you were a Catholic and and you wanted to use those words, this would be the free flow of the Holy Spirit. And lots of people are now talking about complete embodiment of the soul now, and I can feel that, I sense that there's almost like another part of us, the soul or the light body, or call it what you like. See, I've got a thing going up my spine now, not my legs, as if to say, carry on, son, you're on the right path, so I'll keep going. But that feeling that the soul is trying to come out and sort of clean up every single cell, which will also impact then upon cleaning up the way the DNA expresses itself, and then what will happen then is it's almost like through every single pore of our body then, this new information will come through. Now, I know that that's got like an underlying religious connotation, because I do tap back into that stuff, because not all of it was bad, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that works for me, and then we get onto the realms of then archangels and angelic beings. And, I do have a sense, and the ancient Hebrews believe this as well. They believe that the world we live in here now, this world that we're discussing, is called the 1% world, that there was 99% of other stuff going on in invisible realms that were influencing us to make the choices in this realm. So I do believe that. I haven't got fully the picture of it, really. I don't know whether anybody has, but I can see a small bit that I've always sensed, but not really understood with my mind, And the closest thing that comes to it is Merkaba mechanics, or if you like, spiritual science. I call it spiritual science, because again, it's these realms of subtle energies and the influence, and what I like is I get this information in my head about different energetic stages, if you like. I think they're called harmonic universes, and that within the human sphere, there's, if you like, there's 12 possible dimensions, but it's a 15 dimensional time construct, and time and space. But I understand now from some of the readings and some of the feelings, that we've just jumped up as well now into almost like a sixth harmonic universe that they call a density. And all this seems to make sense to me at one level, and at another level I'm like, what? But here's what I've come to more than anything else, is that that's all very well and good. This thing that's guiding me, just give me something practical to do here now, that will improve the quality of my life, help the people around me. And if anything else then falls into helping other people, then all well and good, you know. And I think that that's what they call the service to humanity. You don't go around ambulance chasing based upon some sort of egomaniacal sort of chasing thing. It's something that happens when you live your own life fully. It sort of spills out and radiates into other people's lives beyond you knowing about it then, you know. Because sometimes I think I go into a certain place, oh, I'll be able to say this, that will help them. And it's just bumping into somebody at the front door making a cup of tea. That helps them more than you can possibly realize, you know. So it's really the stuff that happens out of the blue that I think is, if you want to say that, divinely guided. I think that's the way that it works, you know.
And what you've just said there is that when you are coming from a place of clarity, when you truly know that you are divinely guided, that you are divinely guided and protected, in everything, if then you sort of come to see and you realize, you look at people and the way they're behaving in their actions, and you go, that's where they're at, that's where they are now. They're getting the information and the experience that they need. That is their clarity for where they are now. And you don't look at them and go with judgment or anything else. You just go, oh, okay, you're on that part of your path, and that's great. That's where you are, and then you're there, and that's good for you. I feel as though there are too many people that are looking outside for somebody, for that guru, for that person that is going to be able to tell them. And I think what it also is the fact that they've become so subservient. They've gotten to a point where they expect everyone around them, their doctors, the teachers, and to be able to tell them how they should feel, what they should do, where they should go, what they should think. That they then start looking for the gurus outside of themselves, and really you don't get the clarity until you go within. There is no answer outside. There is no answer from anyone outside. Truly, there isn't. Everything you need is within you. If you can stop this being infiltrated and put like an astronaut's bubble head type thing here. And then you can just clear everything out, and then, like you say, from the heart, and it comes up, and it's just a feeling and a knowing, but it penetrates here as well. I get it here. I feel it come in here, and I go, right, okay, this is coming, and I can feel it coming up, and it comes here, and then I go, whoa, right, okay, I'm going to act on this now, because it's coming from within me. It's not coming from outside of me. It's coming from within me, and it's divinely guided, and I am guided to do these things. And these feelings are coming from a place of just knowing, And when, like you say, you get some at the beginning, you'll sort of, it's like blindness, where you think that you just have to blindly go and just follow in it. I was doing that, but probably not to an extent where I think I've always had this from birth. Well, actually, I wasn't. Again, that's another story. But I had this from when I came into this incarnation. I had information from when I first came in that that I wasn't to look outside of myself, and I did. I definitely wanted to experience that. So the human side of me definitely did that from time to time. But I think I would always come back to myself. I would always come back to me. So whatever, when I look back on my life now, wherever I was, whatever I was doing, yeah, I would go out and I'd see what's happening on the outside, but I'd always come back to me. So I understand for some people that if they haven't had that from the beginning, or if they're on a path where they're so used to giving their power away to the external that it's hard for them to then be able to do that. And I'm grateful in this incarnation that I've had that from the beginning, and I totally understand why some people don't have that. And that's why I don't come from a place of judgment to anyone about anything. I really don't, because everyone's on a different path. I came in with different abilities and different, qualities and everything else, and everyone else has done the same. They're all on on a journey of self-discovery, as it were, and they're all in different stages. So if I can help in any way, I'm more than willing to. And I think actually thinking about it through singing, because somebody did say you're an open channel when you sing. So I think that because I've had that, I have always been, I've always been asked for advice, even when I people just come and spill everything out and tell me everything, and I listen and I try and give advice as best I can. I think, and back then I used to think, well, I've given you advice, you haven't, but now I'll give advice out freely and whatever. If you take it up, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine. I don't mind. I really don't, because if I can help, and if I do help, all well and good. If it's just not the right time for me to help you, or for you to be able to take the information or advice that I give, not that, like I say, I'm in any way, shape or form, qualified to do it. But if you've come to me and asked for advice and you take it and it helps, great. If you don't take it, again, great. At least you've then decided that's not where you want to go, and you go on your way. But I don't come anywhere. I don't judge anyone. I totally get how everyone is on a different path, and sometimes looking outside of themselves for those gurus may just be what they need. But when you do get to a point, like there are a lot of people that are talking to each other now, when you do get to a point where you understand that nothing outside of you has the answer, it's all within, and you're following your path, and you're getting into alignment, and then you start coming from a place of inner knowing and inner standing, then when I came to that point, I lost the martyrdom, I lost the wanting to save everyone, I'm just understanding that me being who I am, where I am in this moment, is fine. And if I'm being my authentic self, that'll attract whoever to me at that point, because then they will see in me, because they're obviously at a point in their journey where they can see it.
Couldn't agree more. And I think, I used to have 2 clinics in big hospitals, and the patients used to come to me, what shall I do? And all I used to say is, don't be asking me, because I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. Let me explain it. That what the information that I get will be momentary, from breath to breath. So I'll show you how to get in there, because I believe that what you've just said, what you're looking for is in there. It's not, you're going to not find that from somebody else. So go back in there, get more of an acquaintance with who you really are at depth, and then start listening then, and choose what you feel is correct for you. But accept the responsibility of the choices. And it's called, isn't it? It's called growing up. And one thing I was told more than anything else is, if you're pointing the finger, even in the slightest way, there's always 3 fingers coming right back at you. Right? God. And I call that I, self, me, ism. That's your ism, And I know now that, even because I do it, I go, and I go, okay, all right. What do I have to do here? How should I think? What should I take action on? Do I go forward? Do I go backward? That I get a sense of then, But it doesn't just come overnight, Tracy. No. It's something that we're learning. I'm learning myself. Yeah. I only ever feel like I'm scratching the surface of what's possible here. Yeah. But I really feel clear. I really feel strong. There's lots and lots and lots of things that I wished would be different. Yeah. But you know what? They're not at the moment. And if they're going to change, and they're supposed to change, then they will change over time. And then somebody say, but there's no such thing as time. And I'll say, time to go now. And on that note, we're going to have to wrap up, because we haven't half gone on. But let's do this again somewhere down the line. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. You are a bright and shining light, We've had a good laugh. And my thing is, they call me Dr. Lightheart, you know, but, you know, at depth, I'm probably one of the most serious persons on the planet, you know, because I do believe that we all have a part to play, like you say. We all have a key that's absolutely necessary, and it's based upon our uniqueness, you know.
Absolutely.
And I think what's going to happen is that this is something called a collective individuality, that we're all working to make the world a better place, but in our innate skills and allowing them to come, you know. And they call it vocation. Vocation comes from vox, and it means voice, don't it? And if you've got something to say, I think that it's time now to express it and allow it to come out and direct you, you know.
Yes.
So on that note, my love, and as I say, a pleasure to talk to you. We'll do it again when the time is right, and keep in touch.
Yes, we'll do.
Okay, and thanks very much.
Thank you.
And thanks everybody. Nice to see you all.
Bye.
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 Marvelous.